Hello and welcome to Friday Cafe. I'm Cindy Milner from Pathways for Parents, and this morning we are going to discuss the kids say the darndest things. I have three guests with me here today. I have Emma Meyer, Milena Fortin, and Beth Wilder. Let me go back and have you introduce yourselves because I think that this is so important. Tell me who you are.
Well, my name's Emma Meyer. I am a junior at this high school, East Middle High School. I was born with cerebral palsy. I have a very big family.
You do? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I enjoy listening to music, spending time with my horses, and just hanging out with my friends.
That is great. That is great. Milena, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the director of a preschool program in Ludlow, Massachusetts, the Boys and Girls Club there. I have had the opportunity to not only be a teacher there and work with some great coworkers, but now, lead the program itself. We really do a great job, I think, of providing a high-quality program for, the early years of kids' lives.
Right.
I'm married. I also have a big family, one of 7 siblings.
Wow.
So there's a lot of us. So there's lots of cousins and nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles and all that good stuff. But I'm also a mom to Carter. He's 7. And he's probably been my greatest accomplishment, I would say. So far, he's been doing something right.
Good for you. Yeah, we always do something right.
I do something right.
Beth, tell me a little bit.
Well, I've worked as an occupational therapy assistant for a long time in the Longmeadow Public Schools, and I work right now a lot with the preschool, so similar as you, working with the special needs, and I absolutely love it. And I've learned a lot over the years about all the different disabilities, and now I'm a gram to a little girl who has some special needs too, so I continue to learn and help her, and it's been, and I'm also married and have 3 children of my own. And
that is great. So what is advocacy, Emma?
Well, advocacy to me, and I feel like this is really important coming from a person with a disability, because I feel like it's really important for the person with the disability to advocate for what they want and tell people what they want, and that person then does it.
So that's great. Absolutely. So it's telling them what you want, and then they help you do it, or they do it for you, or they just tell you, okay, Emma, you're in control, right?
Yeah.
So you have power there. How about Milena? What's your thoughts of advocacy?
I really think advocacy is about being part of something that you really believe in, you really care about, that you have a passion for, and not being afraid to be vocal about it.
Right, right. And Beth, how about you?
I think advocacy is about being able to stand up for something that you want to be a part of,
and have a voice, right?
Yeah.
I think you were saying to me earlier, it's kind of giving a voice to something that you believe in. So tell me about your grandchild. How old is she?
She's 2 years old,
Good.
and she has cerebral palsy.
Yep. So Milena, tell me a little bit about Carter.
Well, Carter's 7. He was born with a few different congenital defects. He had a heart defect. He also was born with cleft lip and palate, and he had fingers on each hand that were fused together.
Wow, wow. So this opens our conversation about how do we help you advocate for yourself, for your child, or help your child advocate for themselves. And I think that Milena, you shared with me a great story about Carter and when he went to school. And that, what would children say to him?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really realize about, how kids can judge or question until he went to school, because when he was born, of course, he had my family and we love him no matter what. And he was always around my coworkers and, you know, family daycare with people that sort of grew up with him as he has changed and grown and gone through surgeries and things. So
He's had how many surgeries?
9.
Wow.
9 different ones. And I mean, it shows you the resiliency of kids, but I don't think we really experienced other kids judging him because it was always his cousins or family that he was around.
Right.
So Carter started kindergarten this year, and that was his first experience with other children that he didn't know. So he came home from school one day, and he just very casually said, "Mom, today one of the boys in the class said I look like a mouse." Oh. And to me, it's like heartbreaking because I know that child is seeing, you know, his physical self. Now, he has since had his lip repaired. I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't really be able to tell. Other than his lip is a little bit small, as most children with cleft lip and palate do have, you know, either oddly shaped or you can see the scars and things like that. You know, and I asked Carter, "What did you do?" And he said, "Well, I just went and told the teacher." And I said, "You know, I don't look like a mouse." And the teacher, of course, was really great, and she sat them all down and they talked about, you know, everybody's different and everybody has different facial features and hair color and eyes. And so for me, my heart was breaking for him, but even more so, I was so proud because it was like he was already aware that he knew how the skills and knew what to do to say, to stand up for his own self. And,
Right.
I mean, he was only 5 at the time,
Right.
so
Right.
I mean, that's brave.
That is brave.
Way more brave than I think I could be, because I would have been like, "Go on there."
Yeah. And I think, you know, you had said to me that he now can tell people that he was born that way,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you say, right, Emma? Tell me a little bit about what you say to people when they approach you.
Well, when a person approached me and questioned me about my disability, I just kind of tell them like it is and tell them the facts. And I just kind of say, "Oh, I was born that way because of lack of oxygen to my brain, and that's why I have the disability, because the brain cells died." And if the kid doesn't understand that at the time, then I usually try to have the parents explain it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think you're educating both that child and the parent, which is really important because many parents don't know. And I think you gave us a really good description. Like, okay, you could say I was born this way, but when you talk about lack of oxygen to the brain, wow, that's a lot of information.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like difficult for kids to understand that.
Yes.
But if you kind of just break it down in a way, like, and don't use big words, then they tend to understand it better.
Right. And I think, too, we talked a little bit about the fact that, you know, making you a person, telling people that I like to ride horses, that I love my horses, and I like to hang out with my friends, right? Because they learn more about you than just your physical appearance.
Yep.
Right, yeah. Do you get to tell people that sometimes, what you like and what you don't like?
Yes. Okay, occasionally. But usually when kids like question me, it's usually not about that. It's usually questioning about my disability.
Okay, yep, right. And tell me a little bit about your granddaughter.
Well, my granddaughter is a beautiful little girl, and she's got curly hair like Emma.
Yep.
And she doesn't talk yet, but she's very smart. She understands everything that we say, I think. And, you know, she's a typical 2-year-old in a lot of ways.
Yeah. You actually proved that the other day when we were at playgroup. Beth came in with her granddaughter to playgroup. And it's an infant, toddler, sometime preschooler playgroup. And you came in with a new communication device with her.
Yep.
And that was exciting because we didn't know that she could say yes or no or
She
really
can.
understand. She can.
She can.
Yeah, so she was using the communication device to say, you know, I asked her, do you want to hear a book today?
Yeah.
And she certainly did. She put her hand on that tablet and pressed the smiling sun. Is it a sun?
Yeah, it's kind of a sun, yes.
Yeah.
Symbol, yeah. So she can,
That was great.
yeah, she really is enjoying. Do you want me to talk about the playgroup
Sure,
now a little bit?
yeah,
She,
yeah.
well, when we started coming, I went a couple times last summer, and she was a lot younger, and you know, she probably wasn't really ready, but felt a little bit, you know, a little bit intimidating to her especially, and we and the things just got busy in the fall, and I think we had something else we had to do on that day, so we didn't go for a while, and I was anxious when we got back around I think around December or so to start back with the class, and she was still a little bit intimidated by her, you know, the peers. It's a little bit scary, but she has just done so well, and she's just starting to be able to look forward to it, and it's just so important for her. It's
Right.
just important for her to be there.
This is a community-based playgroup. It's not specific for children with disabilities. It's held at a library, and people drop in, parents with babies, parents with toddlers, and parents with special needs children. How did you feel coming to that group?
Well, the first couple times it was, you know, even though I've been working with children with special needs for many, many years, you kind of feel a little bit of a pull to your heart when, you know, people look, and
You're out in public.
yeah, you're out in public, people look a little bit, and I thought I was tougher, but I felt it, you know,
Yeah.
and it would be hard for parents, you know. It's got to be hard. And not too many people said anything, you know. It was kind of like we were just right here. But I knew that it was important. I knew that we should come back, and so we came back. I thought for her it was important, and the more we came back, the more at ease everybody got, including all the other parents, the kids, and especially Kate.
Yeah, yeah. I know it was profound when I sent to you. I mean, I think that's why I invited you to join me today, and to join us, because we talked about playgroup and how she's grown.
Yeah,
And
in such a short time.
it was just such a short time, you know. When she first came, she was nervous. She was a little bit afraid of the environment. But you kept coming, and you said to me, you know, if I hadn't come back,
Yeah.
that you know, she would not have grown as much in those few months. And she's tiny. She's 2.
Yeah.
But those great strides, you know, for a 2-year-old, and the resiliency of you to bring her back, and Milena too, your resiliency as a parent to say, I'm going to help you stand on your own and be positive and meet new people. That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? What else? So what would you like people to know? What would you like people to know? If you could say anything, what is it? When a child is approaching a person with disabilities,
Don't avoid them.
don't avoid them. Yeah, don't pretend they're not here, right? They're not there.
Yeah, because they are.
Yeah.
And even though they might be a little afraid, you should still try and encourage them to have interaction with that person, because it would ultimately benefit them and make them not afraid to talk to people with disabilities.
So a simple hi or hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And should people ask? Should people ask when they approach a child, or, you know, should they ask about the disability?
I mean, I think it depends on the child. I mean, I know for Carter, we always tell him to share that. We're very open with it. I mean, we've had conversations with families. You know, I mean, his cleft lip and palate was about as bad as you can get. And we've had friends that have said, oh, why do you have pictures of him when he was an infant? He looks so great now. And it's because that's a part of who he is.
That's who he is.
That's who
Yes.
he is. That's
Yeah.
who he'll always be. It might not look the same.
Right.
You know, a surgeon can do wonders now, but that doesn't mean that's just not a part of him.
Yeah.
And to remember that just because he's different and just because another person's different doesn't make them any less of a person.
Right.
And to be open to that. And I think he notices differences, but I think in a good way, where he can say, I'm different, this is my story, and then he'll ask other children their stories.
Yeah. How would you feel at playgroup?
Well, I always feel, and I'm sure you probably do too, and Emma, you should feel proud of yourself. I am so proud of Kate. I am proud of her. I don't really think about her as having a disability because every little thing she does, I think, is just the greatest.
Right. That's the proud grandma. That is the best.
So,
but should people ask when they don't know what to say?
I certainly I wouldn't mind if people ask at all. You know, I wouldn't. It would probably make it easier than to know that they might be sitting there wondering.
Right.
You know, instead of me saying it to them, if they said, you know.
Yeah. And Emma, Kate, and Carter all have feelings. They have emotions and feelings, right? So if you're ignored, you're not feeling so great. If they start to say hello, well, at least that's a great way to start a friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrific. And so I think we covered a lot of ground here this morning. Anything else you want to add?
Well, just one thing about the playgroup, just the coming back, and you experienced it. It was not even about her or me, but about the parents that genuinely seem really interested and caring, and they're sharing stories with me, and they're interacting with her. Right. They say hi to her, and you know, it's a great way to incorporate all that we're doing, and I think it's so important because in a little while she's going to be in preschool, and before you know it, these things are so important.
They are. And I think it was because you came back and you kept coming back. So parents with a child with a disability, would you say to them, tuck away, or would you say, come on out and be with people?
Absolutely.
I would say don't be a wallflower.
Don't be a wallflower. That's great. That is a great way of saying it. That is a great, because I think the more that we are out there with children with disabilities, with people with disabilities, the more our comfort is. Yeah. So thank you for joining me with this portion of our First Friday Cafe, and we'll talk about the subject soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
April is also Autism Awareness Month. Light It Up Blue celebrates the awareness program. Did you know autism now affects 1 in 68 children and 1 in 42 boys? Autism prevalence figures are growing. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder in the U.S. Autism costs a family $60,000 a year on average. Boys are nearly 5 times more likely than girls to have autism. There is no medical detection or cure for autism. Some autism symptoms are social interaction difficulties, communication challenges, and a tendency to engage in repetitive behavior. However, these symptoms and their severity vary widely. They may result in a relatively mild challenge for someone on a high-functioning end of the autism spectrum. For others, symptoms may be more severe, as when repetitive behavior and lack of spoken language interfere with everyday life. Please celebrate Light It Up Blue for autism. On April 16th, there is a Autism Resource Fair hosted by Ludlow Public Schools at Ludlow High School, and it is open to the public, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. For more information, you can call 583-3527. Now, let's get back to our program. Welcome back to Friday Cafe. Our discussion today is kids say the darndest things. And I have 2 new guests with me, Jennifer Stratton and Natalie Woodger. Thank you for joining me. Our discussion this afternoon is going to be about how do we help parents understand disabilities or differences and help their child understand disability and differences. How do we help them understand the importance of the engagement of getting them to familiarize their child, to help kind of overcome the barriers that we may feel. So I'm going to start by asking you to introduce yourself. I'm going to start with Natalie. Natalie, tell us about yourself.
I'm a mom of 4. I have Dion, he's 14. Gwen is 7. Raina, who's 4, and George is 2.
Right. Wow. And Raina is a child with some special needs.
She is.
Tell
yes.
us a little bit about that.
Raina is blind. She also has microcephaly, which presents some other disabilities for her. Understanding things and that things don't always go her way is one of her biggest things.
Yeah,
But
that's a
for
challenge.
lots of kids, though.
And I know she's got a big personality.
Yes, she does. She's very social.
Very social. That is amazing. It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And Jennifer Stratton. Jen, tell us about yourself.
Sure, I'm a mom. Only 2 though. I have a son who's 9, almost 10, and he's in 4th grade. And I have a daughter who is 7. And my son Nolan has some exceptionalities. They are invisible disabilities that make sometimes some everyday tasks like tying shoes and writing pretty challenging for him. But he finds ways to adapt and is successful in many ways. I am also a professor of education, and so I was a classroom teacher. Taught from kindergarten through 3rd grade, and now I teach college level and graduate students, and I'm an advocate for students, people with differences.
Yeah. And that's a really difficult thing. When we talk about people with differences, how do we refer to that? We were just talking about that. How do we say that? I loved hearing you say with exceptionalities, and you said special needs, and it's all fine. It's all fine. I think it's our comfort zone, you know.
Exactly.
But I do think that in the general public, people don't know what to say. They don't know how to reference a difference. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do.
I know.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Because I guess what occurred was when I would introduce my son and say that he had a disability, people that kind of head would tilt and go, oh,
Yep.
you know, and then all of a sudden they wondered what he couldn't do.
Yeah.
But when I introduce that I have a child who's exceptional, oh, well, what can he do?
Yeah.
Right?
that makes
And
sense.
so that's why I use the term exceptionality. I like focusing on all that he can do.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Now, in addition to 2 kids, and in addition to being a professor, you're also a really budding writer.
I'm trying. Yes, I am. I actually looking at the bookshelves. So what it is when I love children's literature. And I'm an avid reader of children's literature, and I teach reading courses as well. And what I've noticed is a really big gap. You probably have noticed it too, Natalie. It's hard to find books about children with special needs on the bookshelves as main characters, as strong main characters, and especially when I looked more carefully at biographies. I've been going to the library looking on the shelves of biographies. There's very, very few biographies about people who live exceptional lives with exceptionalities.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I've decided that there needs to be more stories, so I'm going to write them.
Terrific, absolutely. And what we're trying to bring to the table today is helping adults understand. How do we teach our children about those differences? How do we engage our kids in some positive, reflections or positive engagements and positive activities with kids with disabilities or kids with challenges, kids who are different? And I know, Natalie, you have a great story that you shared with me. And can you tell us a little bit?
Recently, our family went on a trip to Florida, and upon entering the airport, Raina proceeded to show some of how exceptional she is.
I love it. Catching on already.
By screaming bloody murder and flailing as we got into the airport. We couldn't figure out what tipped her off. We don't know what tipped her off. This is just how Raina is. And we went through the airport through security. They whisked us through security with this flailing, screaming child. And then we got onto the airplane, and she proceeded to do the same exact thing, except for takeoff. She thought was great and laughed hysterically. But right after takeoff, she started the screaming and flailing in these confined quarters. And I'm sure it was a long flight for everybody, but especially us and her brothers and sisters. Everybody's looking. And at one point, I was able to get her back in the car seat, which we had on the plane. And she started kicking the seat in front of her and accidentally kicked about a 10-year-old child in the arm. And I apologized profusely to the kid and to the dad. And the dad turned around to me and he said, he's sitting forward and he's perfectly fine. I explained to him that he'll be okay. You just take care of her and make sure the rest of the flight is fine for her and for your family. And to know there's people out there like that put themselves out there to make our days better, because they don't have to do that. He could have turned down that, and he didn't. And he also taught his son, I think, a great lesson that why not help somebody and, you know, like I said, make the day better.
Absolutely. He was tolerant. He was teaching his son tolerance and acceptance.
Yeah.
Didn't make a big deal.
It taught me too.
And, yeah, and we learn both ways,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We do learn both ways.
Then you learned from it too. I was like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, the whole time I'm so impatient with her and just want her to correct her behavior now and just stop it. But if even one person on the plane is willing to accept it and make it a little easier on us, then we were able to breathe and laugh when we got on the plane. And we did get compliments on her family and, oh, you're so nice and you tried so hard. And
You know, and that it takes that one person, right, that reaches out to you, makes you feel comfortable, makes all the difference in the world.
yeah,
And that's the hard part. People don't know how to do that, I think, because they're afraid to interfere into your life.
and they don't always have the right words for it, even if they are trying to help. So
Right. Good. Do you have anything to contribute to that? Are you?
Well, it's reminding me of just recently, we were in, my daughter was with her teammates, she's on a swim team, and they were talking about technology in sport,
Yep.
and they were talking about all different technology. And so I brought up, I said, oh, Caitlin's cousin uses technology in sport. And they said, oh, what kind? I said, well, he uses a wheelchair. And so we were introducing,
yeah,
and I wanted to introduce to them that you can use all sorts of technology, even in sport. So that was and so we actually started talking about all the different types of sports that you can play, adaptive sports that you can play.
Right.
gosh,
So,
and even to think about the blind kids playing all the sports. I mean, they play pretty much everything. It's
Exactly.
you know, some things have to be adapted more than others, and Raina has beep balls
Yes.
and things like that. We did beep Easter egg hunt, so you know, it just takes creativity on your behalf.
well, that's it. I think it takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of, a lot of work. A lot of work. But yet, when you see the outcomes, you know, of Raina enjoying herself on the beach, we have a photo of her on the beach, and she's just enjoying the
Yes.
water and the beach. It really makes it worth the efforts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that trip that you said, oh my gosh, what were we thinking?
those little moments at the beach when she's free and being herself and running around, and you know, it just makes it completely worth it.
Right, right. And that extra person that made you feel good on the way too, that
Exactly.
adult, that you
Yep.
knew that there were adults that were compassionate,
Exactly.
kind of help you. And that compassion, again, is shared with the environment, people around you.
Yeah, and I mean, those people were even on the next flight.
Oh.
And you know, I can't imagine what he was really thinking in his head, but I hope it was all good things.
Yeah, yeah, he's thinking, God bless you. Because,
Yeah, exactly.
right? He
Yeah.
really is. And not just one child, all four of them went
Yes,
with you.
and they have to deal with it too. She's screaming, and like I said, they knew that people are looking and staring, and my son's 14, and of course everything is, he wants to be in his control, but one of his favorite people in the world is Raina, so, you know, he has...
How does he talk? How does he talk to people about her difference? Does he like explain what's going on, or does he?
I think he's very open with it.
Yep.
This is Raina, my sister. She's blind. We don't often have to say the special needs part. A lot of times you just don't, because why?
Right.
And
Right.
and when people say she's tired in stores and things like that, I don't go, no, she's not tired. She's blind. So you know.
Yeah.
But for him, I guess it's partially because it's one of his favorite people in the world.
Absolutely.
He has a lot of tolerance for it, and for a 14-year-old kid, I'm so lucky for him to even be the kid that listens to everything that I say, you know, straight A student and football player, plus a good guy to his blind special needs sister that can be very challenging. I'm a lucky mom, so.
Yeah, see, that's what brings it all together.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
brings it all together. Jennifer, you also had a recent experience with telling Nick's story, right? Can you share that a little bit?
Sure. So Nick is a family member on my husband's side. And he, at the age of 14, had was at an overnight camp in the Berkshires and had contracted meningococcal meningitis. And so they rushed him to the hospital and in Pittsfield, and then they med-flighted him to here at Bay State. And they worked very hard for 2 weeks to save his life. And then eventually they transferred him to a hospital in New York, and in order to save his life, they had to amputate all 4 limbs. So after being in a coma for 2 months, Nick woke up as a 14-year-old with his legs being amputated above his knees and his arms just below his elbows. And when he woke up, one of his first questions was, "Where are my friends?"
Oh gosh, yeah.
And he wanted to know where his friends are, and they started showing up in droves, and then he just got moving again. And he got moving so much so that he was an athlete beforehand. He played hockey. So afterwards, he just played hockey differently. He played sled hockey. So he started playing sled hockey, and then one of his teammates who played sled hockey with said, "You really need to try wheelchair rugby." So he was reluctant at first, but then he decided to try wheelchair rugby, which is played on a it's pretty much what it sounds like, right? So it's the wheelchairs and they're colliding. It's a tough sport. It's played on a basketball court. The players use a volleyball, and they pass the ball. They throw the ball, they pass it, bounce passing, and they will put the ball on their lap and wheel and roll, and then once they go over the goal line, they score. It's also known as murder ball.
Oh boy.
Lovely. It's an intense sport. So they, it's get the person with the ball. And Nick is a world-class player. And so he ended up going to being onto the development team, drafted kind of onto the development team around 2007, I'd say. And then he ended up representing the United States in 2008 in the Beijing Paralympics, and they won a gold.
Wow.
Due to his incredible work. Yeah, so it's pretty remarkable. It's such an incredible story, and we are so proud of him. It's a difficult story.
Yeah.
And what my children, being very proud of it, and his story being part of our lives, want to share it with everyone. And so what ended up happening was my daughter asked to bring it in to share it with her class. And knowing that it's a different story and knowing that there needs to be some background knowledge shared with young children, I sent an email to the teacher, and the teacher responded that she was uncomfortable sharing it. And we were disappointed.
That set you on a bandwagon. Yep.
We were disappointed.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was Caitlin did share it after, speaking with the principal, talking about what Caitlin did want to share, which was all that her cousin could do.
Exactly.
That he had represented our country in the Beijing Paralympics, and he had won a gold.
And imagine that. You can drink water if you'd like.
Thanks.
Imagine that, like that way of bringing that story to really young children, because that was what? Kindergarten?
It was kindergarten, yes.
So at kindergarten level,
right.
Normalizing, excusing that language of, it's not a normal thing, but normalizing the conversation with a kindergarten classroom that this is what he did. This is, here is a poster. Right?
Yeah. Yes, it was a poster. Yeah, it was a poster.
And it's something amazing for anybody to do.
Exactly.
Never mind say it's scary, but just because he was different in the picture, or the story was different, or
yeah, I think it's the sickness, and and maybe the having being a quad amputee. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What I do know is that what spoke to me was that the teacher was uncomfortable with having this conversation in the classroom. So that means we need to do something, right? I'm a teacher educator. That means I'm not doing my job fully enough. That we have teachers out in the classrooms who don't feel fully equipped to have these conversations. So we need to talk more with our own children. We need to talk more as teachers. We need, as teacher educators, we just need to have more of these conversations.
And as parents.
Exactly.
Both of you as parents.
Absolutely.
I think the other piece is that we have to check in with ourselves about our own emotionality and what we feel comfortable handling, you know. Because I know there are certain issues that I'm very uncomfortable with, but I want my children to be comfortable with. But I think it's how we handle that that really speaks loud and clear.
And I think also the part where we may make is that we need to realize that children may not have everyone that's fully able-bodied within their family, right? So that child in front of you who's in your classroom, so all Caitlin's classmates happen to be fully able-bodied. Yeah. We don't know that all their family members were, right? So there could have been someone that would see the poster and say, oh, hey, you know, someone in my family uses a wheelchair, or someone in my family, and, you know, identify and feel empowered and validated. And that's what was so important for that. When we have conversations, then we empower more people.
I had to tell my daughter's kindergarten class last year that her sister was coming into the preschool in the same school, and that she's blind and special needs. I didn't want Raina just coming into the school and this is my sister and what's wrong with your sister and things like that. So I went in with a Braille book and into the kindergarten class, and of course the teacher happened to be out that day, so I was on my own, literally, because the substitute didn't have any idea what to do. Oh no! So there I am with Raina, and she did really well. The kids loved her; they all love her in the school. But just to get it out there, so that way it was part of the norm once they got in, once Raina was there, and.
And you told me a heartwarming story about now they're coming up to her on the field, or
she goes to school at Granville Village School. It's a very small school. We have right now preschool through 8th grade in the school, and it's endearing because they all look out for each other and they all know each other. And we've been on the soccer field and had people come up to, 8th graders, 7th graders come up to Raina and say, hi Raina, how you doing? And she doesn't even know what to do or say. It's all overwhelming, but just the fact that they'd come up to her and know that in order for Raina to know that they're there, they have to go up to her. And they're not afraid to do it, and it's great that I have such an awesome community around me that they accept her no matter what, and they are kids. So
and one of the things that we talked about earlier in this segment was kind of that awkwardness of coming out into the public. You know, we had a mom that was saying, you know, gee, or a grandmother bringing a child to a play group, bringing kids to those public places where they become part of the group, but it takes patience, it takes practice, it takes resiliency, determination, all of those things to really make the community come together. And how did it end with your daughter's preschool classroom? Or kindergarten?
Yeah, they thought he was amazing. They thought he was so cool, you know, because do they ask things like, well, how's he catch the ball?
Right, well, I had that question too.
And guess what? He does. He catches it, he throws it, he passes it. We can show the video of it. You just do it differently. Exactly. And so they're amazingly accepting, and they were in awe of him, and they thought he was awesome, and he is awesome. And I think children are amazingly accepting, especially when we model that.
Exactly.
Exactly, the modeling. The dad in the airplane, you know, modeled for his son. You know, you are modeling for your children, and then your children are modeling for others how to be accepting. And certainly I love the poster, this one. We'll be putting this up at the end of the program so that all people can see it, and if they want more information, find the resources there. But can you talk for just a minute or so about this?
Sure. A student actually showed it to me, one of my college students. It's called 3E Love, and it's the brainchild of Annie and Stevie Hopkins, both people with exceptionalities. And Annie really wanted to redesign the sign of international accessibility. And what she did was she took the wheel of the wheelchair and turned it into a heart. And she did that both Annie and Stevie, what it is to break down the stereotypes around people with differences. And the 3E is embrace differences, educate people on them, and then empower people.
Yeah, nice, very nice. And the website, I think it talks about igniting the conversations, right? Talking about it and embracing those differences. That's terrific. Well, I think it's been a great time talking with both of you. You bring such great positive vibes to this subject. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.